Welcome to One Heart TV, where our hearts beat as one. This is Johanna, your host. We're interviewing Gina Sala today. May our hearts beat as one.
This heart beats one. Our hearts beat as one.
Hello and welcome to One Heart TV. I'm your host, Johanna Beekman. So happy to be here today with all of you, where our hearts beat as one. One Heart TV features consciousness raising interviews with luminaries from around the world and music to heal our hearts and drop into our true essence. Thanks for being here today. I have a very, very special guest today, a dear sister and the divine feminine, and she is a believer in Shakti. And we'll talk a little bit about what that is, and Navaratri, an incredible Indian holiday that's happening right now. So we're here wherever we are in the world. Let's tune into what can bring our heart spaces to a spaciousness and the divine feminine. So today I am so happy to be here with one of my teachers that I'm needing to ground a little bit. So let's welcome Gina Sala. Happy to see you here.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. And just
Yeah.
such beautiful projects you're offering. So
Mm.
beautiful. Jay Ma.
Jay Ma.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things I've learned from you in our time together, I've been studying with Gina for maybe 5 or so years,
Mm,
and she has helped me to understand the power of presence together as we sing, right? So
mm.
I'd just like to start today because I'm feeling a little bit nervous and excited to be here with my teacher by doing a simple Om and dropping into our hearts and dropping into ourselves together with our voices. So uh, we're going to also sing an invocation to Ganesha, who is, Gina will speak a little bit about Hindu mythology and what these deity archetypes mean. But this is the ruler of the Muladhara chakra, or the root chakra, and he is an elephant-headed god in India, but he represents this transformative quality of we're working through. He's remover of obstacles and placer of obstacles. So we work through our obstacles by singing to Ganesha, as I feel an obstacle of dropping into my breath and presence today on One
And
Heart
that
TV.
beautiful excitement, exactly as we are, is so beloved, so okay. And you're
Yeah.
just using your good tools.
Yeah, and we're also now we're streaming through Spirituality Gone Wild, and they're all
Yeah,
about spirituality in its purest essence is sometimes a little bit more untamed than we think
totally.
it might be. So we
Yes,
might
it's not
be
always in a
feeling a little
little,
bit of that.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
totally.
So outside of this box of I'm so reverent, there's an excited little girl that's getting to work with one of her teachers and share these
Yay.
practices that have really changed and saved my life over the years. So here's a little invocation to pave our way together.
Mm.
This is called "Shines Like a Million Suns" off of my album Heartbeats One. So I'll take a deep breath and come together with an intention. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha, or you might just deep breath in. So, one thing that we have beginning through and beyond this practice throughout our lives is our breath. So, let's tune in and take a few breaths into our heart space, into our belly, into the resonant divine body that we are, and find an intention and breathe into that space. And feel the resonance of the silence that sound leaves behind. So I know I feel a little shifted just from a few breaths and a little bit of silence and a little bit of sound. Take one more breath and make this time together an offering. Someone in the world who's suffering, someone who needs our love. That this time together may be of service to the world's highest good. Thank you. And as I said, today I'm here interviewing Gina Sala. So I'd like to play a little testimonial for some of the work that she's doing in the world before we get to actually tune in with her in person and hear her beautiful, radiant voice together in this real time. Miss Gina Sala. Or we can jump right in there. Hey, Gina, how are you? I can't hear you yet, Gina, but we can just go ahead and connect here.
I said I'm well and I'm happy to be here with you. Thank you.
Isn't it awesome, this new virtual world? For me, I find before I even turn on the camera, it's a whole new world of just tuning in to my breath and my practice to
Yeah.
stay grounded. I know I get to tune in with you virtually sometimes on your Mantra Monday,
Hmm.
and I did get to tune in with you in person in your sound school. So I've really benefited a lot from what you're sharing in the world. And I just really appreciate how you're able to meet your students wherever they are in this internet world, and like you say, often a one-room schoolhouse.
Hmm.
So I'd like you to share a little bit about your experience with this new world and how you're feeling in this internet life and
Mm.
connecting with your students in virtual reality versus
Mm.
real reality. I know you're up in Seattle area,
Hmm.
right? And you've been leading
Yeah.
sound schools and retreats, and all of a sudden, and you've been flying all over the world to do amazing things, and
Uh,
suddenly you're at home. And I don't need to drive to Seattle to come and check out what you
right.
got going on, which I've appreciated. But I
Hmm.
just, for me as an artist, I've found it's been a steep learning curve lately in
Hmm.
production of sound and audio.
Mm.
And, but I see that when you're holding space with your students, you don't ever seem flustered.
Well, first of all, Johanna,
So,
I
do you
want to
have any
say,
tips you can share with all of us to stay to stay grounded during these uncertain times?
yeah, I just want to say though, Johanna, you took off. I mean, you've really taken on a lot. This, your recordings, but also gathering so many of us on this mantra for healing. I mean, that was a big project and you really did it with heart and you've done such a good job. And so I'll just say, you know, one thing that helps me is literally there are so many tools and technologies. So first of all, we have our Facebook and our Instagram and this, right? This is like how I always am. And you don't see the laundry and you don't see this and that. And here's the thing, we are all so loved and so adorable. And don't you know, don't you have friends that when you see them with their messy morning hair, you love them almost more?
Yeah.
Like, like Johanna, you're like, oh, a little bit excited. The little girl is up or whatever that is. Also the great, gatherer and producer. We're
Hmm.
all of these things at the same time.
Hmm.
So, one thing that really helps me in this time is just to remember that we don't have to be some idea of perfect.
Hmm.
And I spend a lot of time in India. Traditionally, I lived in a Hindu ashram growing up in Canada, Yashodhara Ashram. Swami Shivananda's disciple, Swami Shivananda Radha. So she was kind of a very strict yogi teacher. But what's so funny is in ashram life, like one ashram I spend time at, they feed you out of a pail. Like it's not all like perfect all the time. We do our best. Like Krishna says, offer a leaf with love and it's just accepted.
Yeah.
And so that's the first thing. For me, just remembering that, like take the pressure off. Sometimes there's you may have seen Shiva. Shiva has 3 lines across his face.
Hmm.
And by the way, I love God in all its forms, and I love it in the form of you, Johanna, and you who's sitting there at your computer or phone. It's not way out there perfect, and we are these, too bad you're not good enough to get off the wheel of life. I don't feel it like that. We're not a
Yeah.
mistake. So Shiva has, but we all feel it sometimes, surely, like, oh, whoops, you know. Last night I was teaching and I made a total mistake and I had to go back and correct it and say, whoops, let me correct this little mistake I just said. And that's sort of a grace, like to soften our egos. Ego itself is useful because I identify with this body and I know whose teeth to brush.
Yeah.
But egotism, where I'm so identified with this which is limited, maybe we're not in the body is in us, and we're eternal. So Shiva is like, as you know, this like great destroyer of falseness and illusion. And he has these 3 lines across the forehead that sometimes symbolize like the 3 gunas, rajas, tamas, sattva, like fired up, super lethargic and depressed and not sure what to do, or going to sleep, that's a useful time of tamas, or sattvic, like the way a tree offers its fruit to you. The point is, I love to use, because I have a little sense of humor because I've been doing this since I was a kid. I think of this and I go, whew, and I just wipe off my forehead sometimes. Whoops, what am I thinking? So yeah, so you can just do that. And then the other thing is just to come into my body, come into our bodies. I'm not going to sing a big chant now, but just a drone. Like right now I can hear my refrigerator. Can we harmonize with things around us? Ah. Long, slow exhales like the Om, the Pranava mantra that Johanna led. Long, slow exhales tell our body that, oh, you're not having to run from a tiger. So just one with me. Ma. Sometimes going low. Ma. Sometimes just a few. It doesn't have to be any. You don't see, the thing is, the way I see it, you're already holy. So we're not doing this to become more holy. We're doing it to relax the mind. And mantra, manas is mind, tra is tool. They're just tools for the mind, like the right Phillips head screwdriver for a certain job. When we feel anxious, maybe Ma or Ganesha, like you did. Ma. For me, singing low is really grounding, and to move from my base. So right now I'm literally shifting the weight in my pelvis. Yeah. Shifting the weight in the pelvis. Soft belly, shoulders relax. Ma. It's sort of like taming the body, taming the voice, helping it feel safe. And then, of course, mantra and chant. Mantra, different tools, different mantra for different jobs. Some are calming, some are removing fear, some are empowering, some are opening into love. And then kirtan chants with others of us help us kind of raise the vibe for joy often, or for expressing and releasing grief. So that's my nutshell version.
Wow. Thank you, Gina. That was so beautiful. And
Mm.
really, what I got out of that, Gina, and what I really appreciate about you and your teaching style is that everything you just shared, the viewers can bring it after this practice and go do that. Oh, I'm at a stoplight. Oh my, you know, I have three fingers right here all the time.
Om
Excuse
Namah
me for that.
Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. It's three words, three fingers. How
Yeah.
simple is that for any
Mm-hmm.
human to do? And
Mm-hmm.
so I really love the accessibility of a lot of these practices is part of why I was attracted to them. And also that it's a more coarse practice than an internal meditation. There's like more fine meditative practices, and then we can have more coarse meditative practices. Like I'm actually singing out to the divine and having
Mm-hmm.
a physical experience of my devotion while I'm singing kirtan.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, I had a transcendental meditation practice before this kirtan really hit front burner for me, and I found it to be really sweet. But what I appreciate about you is that you're able to make even Indian classical singing, which is the most generous of time kind of singing that I have discovered as a singer over the years, easy for participants.
Mm.
And so that is really a gift to make this sacred, incredible music accessible to just Joe off the street. We
Mm-hmm.
just sang all together. Ma. Wow.
Mm.
I might not sound just like you, but I got something in my heart from that.
Beautiful. And we're not supposed to sound just like each other. Like every
Exactly.
tree looks
How boring would
different.
that be?
Right. And what I find is, let's be honest, I don't know if you know, I love Pema Chodron is, I lived in a Buddhist monastery also, a Tibetan monastery in the Himalayas. And
Hmm.
Pema Chodron tells this story. So she's been teaching, can you see me? I think you can.
I can
She's
see you.
been teaching mantra for 40 years. And she said, sometimes people ask me, how do you keep your mind still when you meditate? And she said, and I could totally relate to this, I feel so embarrassed because the answer is I don't. But here's the thing, it's like if I'm watching a sunset and this flock of birds goes in front of the sunset, I could chase after the birds. Hey, birds, you blocked my sunset. Or I can be like, well, the birds just flew by. You know, that's kind of my version of it because I like to go down to the beach and look at the sunset. What she said is something like, and it's a traditional Buddhist saying, if the thoughts come through, don't invite them in for tea when you're meditating. Just let them go on by. And
And
for me,
actually, I'd like to interrupt because you specifically said something to me that relates to that.
mhm,
It comes in, write it down, even if you're in your meditation. You're sitting there and it's in your brain and it's racking up a bunch of real estate at the beginning of your meditation. Get
mhm.
it out so you can do
Yeah,
it,
that can be
right?
helpful. Hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt. I was like, I got excited because I was like, yeah, because that one thing, for me, I've had times in my life where I'm like, I need to be so sattvic. I need to be so, I need to be so with the channel of spirituality that I lose sight of, oh, okay, there's this line in one of my songs, though you are human, you are divine.
Hmm.
And I think that that's just like you're saying. And there's also a story that you told one time about you're talking about being in the Himalayas. I think you were in India and you heard, I don't know if I can spark your interest to share this story with people, but you're such a good storyteller. So, Gina was out in India, I believe, and people were singing, and she didn't know the language and she didn't know what they were singing, but people were trying to find you or something. Do you remember this story? They were
Mm.
singing about you.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. So when I was first, well, and first of all, we just finished Navaratri, by the way. And
Yes.
Durga means difficulty, and Durga is the name of the goddess who cuts through difficulty, but is also the essence of illusion, but it frees us from it. The
Yes.
reason I mention that is because I was not in my most illuminated state. I had been working in Japan for a few years, and I felt I had my first real dark night of the soul. So I went to the Himalayas. I actually went to Thailand and then took a didn't find it there and this and that. And I ended up in the Himalayas, lived in a Buddhist monastery. And after some time, I went walking and I got lost. And I got lost because of, it's kind of a great story, but basically it saved my life.
Yeah.
And at some point, I was lost. And there's a certain point when all you're doing every day is walking. And I was just singing, and for example, there was this one bird that just kept. I found out later, I told Marmot, who you may have met from my sound schools,
Yeah.
she found it when I whistled the sound. It's the Himalayan cuckoo. How appropriate. But anyway, that I was just walking and singing, and I had some profound experiences of not feeling separate finally. But at some points, every night, people ask where I stayed, I would always end up at some hut. And often the people, being generous, would give me their bed. And I would be like, no, 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 I'm only in my early 20s. I can't take your bed. But they would give it to me. And later, after many, many weeks, like almost 2 months, I met the first white person that I'd seen. He was from Scotland. And I said, isn't it amazing that everyone sings at night in these huts? And he said, no, I've been waiting till I will see you. He says, they call you Baini Sala. And I was like, what is that? And he said, little sister sound of the river, because you sing everywhere. And he said, I don't know if this is the story you meant.
Yes, that's the story.
Okay. And he said, so you're the entertainment. There's no, at the time, this is the early 90s, there's no TV, there's not much way up there, no reception. And so, of course, these people were walking faster than me, and they would kind of know where I was going. In fact, they would sometimes help me know if it's a yak trail or a human trail. And I was learning their songs. Sunatala pani, sunatala pani. It's so sweet. Nakabane atubai ko janjane naru mayalu. So anyway, long story short, it turned out that they sort of were calling me that name. Sala, Salalala is Anumata poetic for the river. And although I've had other names, that's just the one that I've used mostly.
Wow, that's so amazing. And I just really appreciate that because it gives people a sample of your voice and also your spirit.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
Gina and I have traveled the festival circuit, just not in tandem, but we see each other here and there at these beautiful yoga festivals where we're, in the desert and it feels like we're kind of in India, we're surrounded by people. I have yet to travel to India with Gina. I've been trying to go for a few years. But I've been sharing the sacred practices of bhakti yoga and benefiting for quite a while from these practices. And so we get to these festivals and we're in, the desert. We're all hot, we're all sweaty, and we're all singing with such devotion and such love. We're in this kind of family. And the great thing about this practice that I'm going to tune in about is like that when we're chanting, we're singing together, we're breathing together. And when we breathe together, our heartbeats become synchronized. And so there's this beautiful experience of heartbeats one when we're in these kind of random, chaotic feeling spaces, but we're singing and we're breathing and we're being one. And so that's just such a profound experience. And I just want to appreciate and honor you for holding this sacred space in those chaotic festival spaces and it being so authentic to you after all of so much traveling and being, having a very embodied, powerful Shakti, divine feminine spirit. You're this tiny little thing, but you walk up and the whole room lights up and here's Gina Sala and she's holding the light, you know. And so after saying that, I'd just like to offer maybe for you to chant a little bit for us so people can feel your bhav or the experience of the music that comes through this bhakti yoga practice for you.
All right. Thank you. It's sort of like how surfers sit and watch the water for a while. For me, sometimes I feel it's the inner iTunes. My best singing, And this is what I want to say to anyone out there who feels like, oh, I can't sing, or I don't feel devotional like Johanna. What's the matter with me? Sometimes you just send the voice out looking for it, you know? And so it's not like, again, the message I feel like sharing today is, it's not like you have to be all put together or sound like anyone else. We just, what we're doing is we're choosing where we place our mind so that we can actually focus. Our attention brings the focus and allow the vibrations of the divine through us. So I'll just chant a little something slightly complicated and then something easy we can do together. And that sounds good. Now, can you see me okay? Is that all right?
Yeah.
So, because the second part might be easy. This is, so the chant that Johanna shared, the mantra that we all sang, is from a woman, from Narayani Amma. So this is a mantra to Narayani, and it really reminds the mind, the goddess Narayani, who has the Shakti, all the Shaktis, all the power. Shakti means power, divine feminine. And when I chant it, I remember mantras are tools. This tool reminds me two things. One, it's not small Gina power. It's not the part that identifies with the one who might be afraid or be 5'2", or but it's that we open like a flute to what comes through. And then also we're saying that it's the auspiciousness in all auspiciousness, recognizing the auspiciousness, the benevolence, the goodness of the Shakti in all her forms. So if you want, wherever you are, you could just chant Ma or Ma. Sarva Mangala Mangalye Shive Sarvartha Sadhike Sharanye Triambake Gauri Narayani Namostute Narayani Namostute Narayani Namostute. So we're saying we bow to that. It's a little bit complicated mantra. We'll do the simplest one in a moment. But there's this song that I also love that calls on Bhavani. And Bhavani, Johanna mentioned Navaratri that we've just passed. Nava is 9, Ratri nights, 9 nights of honoring the divine feminine. And then the Devi Mahatmyam. And by the way, I just want to mention, I was raised Catholic, Protestant, Hindu, and lived in a Buddhist monastery. So for me, there are many paths up the mountain. And you can take these as archetypes. You can take them as real person, like the actual goddess. Or you can just, with your heart open, because capital love, L love is the power, open to that which is beyond all. So this calls on that which cuts through, is strong enough to cut through huge fear, anxiety, anger, all the things that are difficult for us. In the story, they're like demons. But the demons, from my perspective, are within us. Demon of lack of self-worth or wanting to be greedy or... So I'll just sing a moment of this. Bhavani Dayani Bhavani Dayani. Bhavani is the name of the goddess who is honored and worshipped, that cuts through, brings balance and not the ego asura, but the divine vibrations and presence back into our experience. Mahavakavani, Vaka, voice, the great vibration. Surda Nara Muni Jana Jani. Sakala Buddha Gyani Bhavani Dayani. Dayani, so compassionate. Yes, I have gotten as far as I can from my own ego power. Help me to surrender. I don't even know how. Help me to open to the higher self, capital S self, to divine power. Bhavani Dayani Bhavani. So for me, those movements, when the voice slides, it's like when we feel emotion, and it kind of sweeps in and integrates all of us. Sometimes it's joy and devotion. Sometimes it's like, Ma, help. I am having trouble here. And we've got a lot going on politically, a lot going on with the climate. So, of course, we want to invoke that capital S self that can lovingly witness and bring love to the parts that worry. And a simple way to chant that just briefly is Jai Jai Ma, Jai Jai Ma, Jai Jai Ma. This is a chant that came through for me to make it so simple for people. Jai Jai Ma, Jai Jai Ma, Jai Jai Ma. Let's sing together. Jai Jai Ma, Jai Jai Ma, Jai Jai Ma. Oh Ma, oh divine power. Jai Jai Ma, Jai Jai Ma, Jai Jai Ma. Letting your heart just open. Jai Jai Ma, Jai Jai Ma, Jai Jai Ma. And if you like, you can put your hand on your heart. Feel your heart vibrate. Jai Jai Ma, Jai Jai Ma, Jai Jai Ma. How grounding to feel your bones buzz. Jai Jai Ma, Jai Jai Ma, Jai Jai Ma. Victory to Shakti. Jai Jai Ma, Jai Jai Ma, Jai Jai Ma. Opening to loving presence. Jai Jai Ma, Jai Jai Ma, Jai Jai Ma. Letting yourself be held. Jai Jai Ma, Jai Jai Ma, Jai Jai Ma. One more breath of it for the whole world, feeling the world held by the Ma. Jai Jai Ma, Jai Jai Ma, Jai Jai Ma. And sometimes you might sing even just the word Ma, and it's full of tears and angst. Sometimes it's full of delight and childlike wonder. But however it is, it's welcome. It's a way to sort of empty, make space in the heart, and to feel the divine vibrations in these sweet names and chants. Jai Ma.
Jai Ma, Gina. Thank you. So beautiful. I'd like to take a moment and feel that Ma energy down from the earth. Take a few breaths back into our intention. And feel again the quality of the silence that's been left behind by the mantra. Check in with your internal landscape and tune in with your offering, sharing some of that goodness with those who need it. Mm. Thank you, Gina.
Hmm. And just, I love, Johanna, that you went to silence because earlier we talked about meditation. And what I wanted to mention is that the gross leads to the subtle. Chanting out loud can take us to more and more subtle vibration. You might hear it on the inner.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like the baby gets sung to sleep. The mind can rest in the heart. We can start to rest in greater silence. So that's one of the purposes, from my perspective, of the chanting and of the mantras, to bring us to a place where we can actually be in silence instead of just look like we're in silence.
Yeah, because that can look really uncomfortable for some people.
Mm-hmm.
So I just love when I can just feel a soundtrack going through my life throughout the day. I know I've
Mm-hmm.
had a really lovely practice, and that soundtrack of just surrender is what it feels like. And I am definitely human, and I have my days, so I need it more
Mm-hmm.
than some. I sometimes feel, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's the beautiful part of these practices. So thank you for sharing your practice. It's so nice to see and feel how different people experience their internal landscapes and working through times. I wanted to tune in because Gina actually just mentioned a mantra that came out recently, and she was talking about Narayani Ma. So we were singing about Narayani Ma a little bit, and I would like to, in a little bit, share the Mantra Sangha Health and Healing music video that she's speaking of, but chat just a little bit about the process of getting there. Um, some of my viewers already know I got kind of stranded in California in a cabin, and this mantra came to me via the interwebs, of course. And I call my teacher, and I'm like, I found this beautiful mantra. And first, I did a 40-day sadhana practice with a mala, 108 mala beads. And I go through the mantra and I do it every morning, 108 repetitions. And it was just a very simple 3 note melody at first, which in Indian tradition, from what I understand, Gina, is a
Mm-hmm.
more Vedic or
Mm-hmm.
simple traditional melody.
Mm-hmm.
And that melody grew into a whole melody beyond me, and I felt kind of spirit speaking through me, and I started seeing visions of all of my friends like Gina joining me on this mantra because it felt a little bit larger than I was. And it always is, these mantras. And it's never about the small self, it's about a much greater thing. And so this mantra hit my heart, and it's a mantra to remove all disease and
Mm-hmm.
rebalance the earth during times of increased negativity, according to this teacher, Sri Shakti Amma in India. So, anyway, I'm in this cabin. I've been doing my practice. I found this melody, and I've had this vision of all of 24, my mantra friends and teachers joining me on this new mantra that I'm excited to find because it feels like it's really in alignment right now with what's going on in the world. So I called Gina up. I'm like, Gina, I found this mantra. Can you join me on it? But first, we went through this whole experience of, oh, the teacher is still alive. Oh, you know the teacher. Oh, I just wrote the teacher's ashram. Do I have permission to do this thing? It became a whole different experience than a normal recording session on a mantra that's thousands of years old. And so I just wanted to honor Gina being really a mentor and a guide during that process and so many other times in my career when I've called her voiceless in Santa Monica about to play for something really important. And what can I do? And she and she drops everything and
Mm-hmm.
helps us do that as a student. So anyway, there's a little background of the mantra, but also of her as a teacher and really the heart with which she surrenders to her dharma, which dharma, from my understanding, well, would you like to say what it is since you're the teacher in this
Well,
particular?
you can do, you know.
So dharma is your like soul path. the thing that you were destined to do, the thing that spirit calls you to do, that is effortless once you begin to do it. When you think it might be hard, it's suddenly easy because it's your purpose, your soul's purpose. And
Well, and it's not always completely easy. Let's just
and it's
say,
not, and it can be though.
right, it can be very easy, but I think that's true. And
That
like
was
yesterday, Dashera, big celebration in India, at the end of Navaratri, also they celebrate Ram and Sita going back to take their place in their kingdom. They got exiled, and that's where we met Hanuman. And but the point is, all of that was Lord Ram's dharma, and he was Vishnu in form, but didn't remember. But there were some difficult times in there. So,
yeah.
but yes, basically that's it.
Yeah.
But if you are feeling that it's calling more from you, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not your dharma, but it's that right action, and that we're so staying in tune with that inner divine guidance that every step starts we 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 feel the right action, and there's a dharmic way and an adharmic way. A means not, like sura and asura, God, not God, demon. Anyway, that was beautiful though. Sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So, yeah, so this dharma, this thing that you are destined to be doing in your life, that,
Mm-hmm.
for me, that was giving up having day jobs and going on the road and singing to spirit and not worrying about money, but just surrendering in a different way than I had. And what I found was it was easier because it was what I had to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yes.
not that it's easy, because it's like lots of years and lots of money and lots of things go into every single thing, but there's something in my spirit that made it light,
Yes. Yes.
and just like the only choice. Like, you see, there's other choices on the path. Anyway, we're on a dharma talk now. Anyway, it's wonderful when you can see other choices, but they don't feel like choices because your dharma is so clear.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I've experienced through my singing in this life. And I see your Dharma is so clear as a teacher. And so, if my people are available to pull up a little slider that you sent us, Gina, about your work, we can share a little bit about what you're doing with your sound school and your private lessons and your Mantra
Mm.
Monday. Would you like to discuss that a little bit?
Oh, thanks, Johanna. Sure. Um, yes.
Oops.
Beautiful.
Did you send us a different slider?
I don't know that I did.
Oh, I was mistaken. Why don't you just speak about what you got going on then? We're still learning how to do a TV show over here.
You're doing great. Yeah, basically, I offer private sessions, as Johanna knows. Something I'm really excited about is I have these awakening voice power of love sound schools. And for example, I just led, they happen in immersions. We have these, now that it's online, I wasn't sure how it would go, but I've got so much feedback and testimonials that it's so sustaining. We gather for 4 hours at a time, um, 8 times during the year, and then there are calls and practices and things that I offer, and people stay together like in these groups for years, like deep soul friends. When you have had a chance to really go deep into mantra practice, chanting practice, and we sing gospel, and one of my greatest learnings is almost every night I listen to and work with my dreams. So there's some dream work, there's some empowering voice work, there's mantra, there's raga, which is like, if you think you can't slow down your mind, sing Drupad raga and you just. So we do a lot, and like there's people who've been doing these sound schools with me for over 7 years, so those groups continue. But I just finished the first year for 2020, or not finished, but I'm finished a weekend recently. They have another couple of immersions, and we'll start again in January. And that's probably the thing I'm most excited about, because there's a community that meets that goes very, very deep. You're not in a hurry. It goes so deep in sound, in refined practices, and we laugh a lot, and it's wonderful. And then Mondays, though, I also love. I have these Monday chanting classes, and whereas before it used to be people in the Seattle area, now they're all over. They're in Iceland and Japan and the Philippines and California, and so it's very fun that there's kind of a community or a sangha that's coming regularly, and those are often there. I do a voice warm up, and there's joyful, and again, it's really that feeling of community and connection through our bodies, very embodied, through our voices, through our minds. So those happen, and then harmonium classes as well. And then I'm a hypnotherapist. I don't usually mention that because it's only if people feel really called. I don't do too many sessions. But if someone is really called, I do that as well. So that's mainly, and then I sing and perform too. So I feel so blessed for this Dharma. Like I must have needed to stay focused because my Dharma keeps putting me back in the focus of the practices and divine and all we can do to keep stabilizing and grounding in these times.
Yeah, yeah, it's so beautiful. And actually, speaking of, I wanted to share one other thing that I've experienced in private. I've actually experienced a lot of the things that Gina's talking about, and I highly recommend them. But trauma work through the voice. Gina's
Mm-hmm.
quite good at using vocal techniques to work through traumas of every sort, and we all know that during these times we have them. So that's
Mm.
something that I work with my clients a little bit too. But Gina is the master, so go trust
Oh,
her. Yeah.
gee.
So let's do a little testimonial video of Gina, and then we're gonna ask you a little bit about Mantra Sangha and let it ride out with the music video for that. Thank you so
Sounds
much.
great. Thanks, Johanna.
Blessings. This is Johanna Beekman with a love shout to one of my dear teachers, Miss Gina Sala. She sings in upwards of 23 languages. She grew up in an ashram and with the sacred practices of India close at hand. It's expressed in the way that she delivers world music in such an authentic manner and the way that she meets her students wherever they are and is able to break down Sanskrit pronunciation and world cultures. She always offers this sound as an offering of love from the heart. It's expressed in the way that she moves through the world and the way that she meets her students and helps access their own authentic background and true nature and share it in the sacred tapestry of life. I invite you to join Gina's sound school or have a private lesson with her, or maybe you want to go to her Mantra Monday on Mondays and just drop into a lovely practice with people all over the world chanting on Zoom. I came with a beautiful background and tapestry of my own sacred music and yoga teaching and world music, bringing the divine feminine into light, Shakti united. Gina has been an inspiration in my own journey through yoga and voice. Please join us on this journey. Namaste. Blessings. Yay, thank you, Gina.
Beautiful. Thanks, Johanna. Wow. Beautiful.
So that journey brought me to Mantra Sangha, Health and Healing. I decided to produce a music video and a song from home based on that mantra that inspired me so much. So, Gina, I just wanted to thank you so much for donating your time to the girls in Nepal. We were benefiting an organization called Matrada Nepal Foundation, and I brought together 24 artists from the Bhakti Yoga tradition and Kirtan, like what we're talking about today, this beautiful practice. And we created a tapestry of sound together and from my home studio here in Oregon. So I'd like to share that video, but first, Gina, what insights have you had through that process? And thank you so much. You really were the icing on the cake of that song. Your beautiful voice just shimmered across the whole thing. But what was your experience like working with Krishna Das and me and all of the people remotely during these times?
Well, one thing I want to say is how beautiful it is. There's this saying, I grew up in a musical family, and the family that plays together stays together. But I could really feel, like, Johanna, you came from a really pure place. You came from this pure place of, it wasn't about, look how great I am. It's like, let's really share this mantra. And I feel that everybody came together in that same purity of heart. And one thing that I love is I love that everybody sounds different. Everyone, we might look different, sound different, have different styles. I mean, there's something just delightful about that. The forest would be boring if there were only like the same three birds, right? Um, so I guess one of the things I really got was just how beautiful
Mm-hmm.
everyone is when they sing. Just how incredibly beautiful. And you had dancers as well. And just appreciating, I mean, that was a very tall order. And you had sort of the courage and the inspiration to ask a lot of, very accomplished people to join you. And everyone said yes, including the producers. Like Hans, that was a huge job. He's a very well known producer, massive time commitment. And it's sort of like just the reminder that the sky's the limit. If you're called to do something, that just it's like what I was saying earlier. The Shakti is the one doing it. This divine river is flowing through, and who knows? To each one of us, what is it that wants to be born through us? What is it in this moment that might want to be said that you think, oh, I don't know if it's really that's too big, or it's just such a beautiful affirmation because each person playing their part makes the whole thing beautiful. So that's for me and also for all of us. You never know. The
Mm-hmm.
person who just smiled at the checker at the checkout counter, that was something that was in the flow of the Shakti smiling at them as that person.
Yeah.
So very beautiful, very moving, and you did a fantastic job, both the organization and the purity of heart,
Oh, thank you
and the
so much.
singing, of course.
Well, I have to say that much of this project benefited from my relationship with you, so hats off all around, and to Hans and Ben Leinbach and
Mm-hmm.
one of my original teachers. Speaking of little nervous making, we
Mm-hmm.
had Krishna Das on that, Grandpa Kirtan, here in the West.
Yeah.
So what an honor to include you and him and bring our family back together during such
Mm.
uncertain times. And
Yeah.
it was an active spirit and moved through me. And what I was moved to say just from what you just said was, would you say that male or female, we are all Shakti and that we all have the divine spirit that can birth new projects with that?
Yes, that's
That
exactly what I was trying to say.
men get confused about that. Men are like, "Well, I need your Shakti because you're a woman and I'm a man."
Ah, right.
So would you say that we all cultivate Shakti within us? And
I would say we can cultivate and we build the capacity to experience it, but actually
mm-hmm.
inherent in everything. Well,
Yes.
so I have, like I said, I love Jesus. I have this sort of nature loving side, but in my tantric practice,
Mm-hmm.
Shiva, or the masculine, is consciousness and Shakti is power. And the two are never separate. Just for the purposes of describing, we might highlight one part, like highlight the aspect of one person as teacher, or highlight the aspect of friend, or highlight the aspect of student.
Yeah.
So for me, inherent, like literally, it's power. So the power that beats the heart, the power that sings as the voice, that is Shakti. The power to choose, Icha Shakti. Like Jnana Shakti, the power to know. Shakti is in everyone. The
Beautiful.
goddess, the divine feminine energy, is sometimes more apparent in a female body.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe now is the time that we're actually here to wake up to rebalance, not masculine over feminine or feminine over masculine, but to awaken to it. And
Mm.
then each person will express it in their way. But yes, in a nutshell, yes, you couldn't exist if you had no Shakti. Shakti
Lovely.
is that which is animating us, which is beating our heart, which is inherently the power that creates us all and is us all. But the consciousness, which is masculine, you could say, is also present.
Aho.
That's
Lovely.
one way of saying it. There's a lot of different ways of describing it, but I just gave the Shakta Tantra version.
Beautiful. So that's such a beautiful description, especially since Sri Shakti Amma was the transmitter of such
Mm-hmm.
mantra on this. So this is Mantra Sangha, Health and Healing official music video. Thank you so much, Gina Sala, for being
Mm.
with us today. All of our fans and people can go ahead and head over to ginasala.com to
Mm.
check out her offerings online and beyond. And you can also go to johannasings.com and pick up some Koshi chimes, tune in with me about my offerings, and we'll see you next week on One Heart TV. We are interviewing Sergen Carr, Porter Singer.
Great. Thank you.
ॐ क्रीं महाकाली सर्वरोगं नसी नसी ॐ क्रीं महाकाली सर्वरोगं नसी नसी ॐ क्रीं महाकाली सर्वरोगं नसी नसी ॐ क्रीं महाकाली सर्वरोगं नसी नसी
क्रीं महाकाली सर्वरोगं नसी नसी ॐ क्रीं महाकाली सर्वरोगं नसी नसी ॐ क्रीं महाकाली सर्वरोगं नसी नसी ॐ क्रीं महाकाली सर्वरोगं नसी नसी Sarvarogam Nasi Nasi Om Klim Mahakali 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 Sarvarogam Nasi Nasi.
Thank you so much, Gina Sala, this week. Next week, we've got Porter Singer, Miriam Terrain after that, Joss Jaffe, and Ben Meinbach. Let's all just om together as we head on with our days. Deep breath in. Love you, family. See you next week.
Thank you. Much
Thank
love.
you, Gina. Blessings.
Thank you.